Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the GA Lean Body Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Keane, strength and conditioning coach and sports nutritionist, here to help you with all things GA related fitness. Today's episode is probably going to be a little bit shorter than normal because it is the Christmas period, and I know a lot of you are spending time with your friends, family, going out, enjoying the Christmas as you should. And I will be leaving this podcast up obviously for after, because you may be listening to this after Christmas, January, February, March. And we are going to go through today how to design your own running program. So, on top of going through some workouts that you can do yourself to improve your aerobic fitness, I've also included and linked my free 4-day running program below. So, this is if it is a case that you just need some structure to improve your sprints, improve your aerobic fitness ahead of the new season, off season for the preseason, or at any point during the year. Hopefully it will support you. It's very basic, nothing too crazy, nothing too elaborate. You don't need any equipment, maybe some cones if you have them, but that's the height of what you'll need. And I'm going to talk through some workouts that you can do, but I will also link that free 4-day running program below, so you can download that. And you'll have that running program. As I said, it'll go through these in a little bit more detail with some video explanations showing you how it's done, and you can apply it just to get your fitness levels up to where you want it to be. So with a running program, and this is something that I get asked quite frequently on my social media channels. I put up a lot of gym-based workouts on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, on my social media in general, to help GAA players with their strength, with their conditioning, building speed, or even body composition style nutritional advice. Running programs are exactly as you would expect them to be. They improve your running. Now, there's a way to do this correctly, and there's a way to do this incorrectly. A lot of GAA players, myself included as a past player in my younger days, didn't see that there's certain types of aerobic zones and certain types of workouts that should take priority for your GAA fitness. And I definitely, in my earlier days, probably late teens, 18, 19, 20, when I was first getting really interested in body and how your body responded to certain stimuluses, the sports science, the nutrition, and just kind of anecdotally applying it to myself, I had all running created equal. I didn't know, was long distance running better than sprints? Should I do more sprints versus long distance? Should I be combining them? Should I be separating them into different workouts? Should I be doing them all in the same workout? And what I'm going to talk about today are 4 workouts that you can do. And I'll also, at the end of the podcast, talk about a bonus speed work session that you can do for those of you looking to improve on your speed, and take you through it bit by bit so that you're able to cover all the gaps that you may potentially have and some of the mistakes that you may be making, a lot of the ones that I made myself. So the first workout in here is, I'm sure this is politically correct and I can call it this, but we always called it the Mexican Mile. So the Mexican Mile is where you go to your GAA pitch and you go at a sprint or at 80 to 90% speed on the longest part of the pitch. So if you picture a traditional GAA pitch, you've got the length from one goal to the other goal, and then you've got the shorter distance behind the goals. In the Mexican Mile, you are going for a flat out 80, 90 or 100% sprint as much as you can from the long parts of the goal. And then when you get to the corner, you jog or walk behind the goal to recapture your breath, to get your breath back. And then you sprint the long distance again. And you repeat that 4 times for a total of 8 sprints. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot and it doesn't take an awful lot of time, but oh my God, this workout will kill you if you're doing it at about 80, 90 or 100% speed. What you'll find is you'll be able to go very quick on the first one, probably 3 because you'll be recovered and slowing down on the second one. And by the last 2, your 100% max effort is actually considerably slower than what your max out speed would be on, say, a 20-meter sprint. That's just natural. That's the way this workout goes. So what that does is it ends up working for a longer distance sprint. So instead of working 20 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters, you end up working for a longer, or 20, 50 meters, apologies. You end up working for a longer sprint, and then you work the recovery on the sides. And as you progress and get better with this workout, what will happen is you will get faster on the long distance, and you'll end up getting slower on the recovery element. So the first time I did this workout ever, I was walking the corners and I was blowing. I was just like, as soon as I went on the long sprint. But 3, 4, 5, 6 times after several weeks of doing it, I found that I was getting faster on the long part, and then I was able to jog behind the goal because I was just basically catching my breath back before the sprints. So this works really well. Personally, I always paired it at the end of my workouts. So I would normally use the clubhouse in the gym, and then I would go and finish with the Mexican Mile outside. It would literally be the finish of the workout, but that's 100% up to you depending on how you're designing your program. But this is one that needs no equipment. You just go to your GAA pitch, your local GAA pitch, and you can incorporate this in. The second workout then is something you'll be more familiar with. It's just a 20-meter sprint and variations of a 20-meter sprint. So in the free 4-day running program, I've used it as a starting from the ground so that you're lying flat in a like downward push-up position, and then you're exploding up into what is effectively a burpee, and then you're sprinting 20 meters, and you're repeating this 5 to 10 times depending on the program. So that 20-meter sprint is a flat-out sprint. So the mistake players make here when they're doing 20 or 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50-meter sprints, very, very similar in terms of how you approach it. You need to be maxing out on those sprints, meaning that you are going 100% as fast as you can, and then you are going to 100% recovery on those sprints. So if you look at any of the top sprinters in the world, the way they do their sprint sessions is they will go at 100% max on the sprint, and then they'll rest for 2-3 minutes, and they'll get their body back, their creatine phosphate level, their aerobic zone they're working within. It'll all calm back down. They'll go back basically to 100% recovery, or as close to 100% recovery as you can get after a max out sprint, and then they'll go again, and they'll do the second set, and they'll rest and recover, and they'll go again. It's the stressed rest response. So you're stressing out max at 100%, and then you're resting as much as you can, to as close to 100% as you can get. So using this, normally 10 sprints works quite well, with a 2 to 3 minute break in between. And I like the starting from the floor, but again, you can vary this. You can start in an upright position. You can start facing away from your finish position so that you're turning on it. You can do we'll get into side to side shuffle sprints later, but there's lots of different examples you can use. But the main thing here is that you are going as fast and sprinting as hard as possible. That's where you get the benefit from this. The third workout then mixes in a kind of a heart rate zone. So I like to have, and this is something I do with my GAA lean body players in the off season, not all of them, but a good chunk of them, where we'll do a 3 or 5K run at a pace. So a 70% pace. So a good way to track your 70% pace here, as opposed to using a tracker, which you can use as well, a Whoop, a fitness tracker, etc., a heart rate monitor. But you can also just use the RPE scale, the rate of perceived exertion. So a RPE scale is 1 is like rolling out of bed, super chill, feel really good. 10 is a max out sprint. Think of the last workout, how you felt at the end of those 20-meter sprints. You're flat out, you're catching your breath, you're going as hard as you can. 70% pace is about a 7 out of 10, meaning it's quite difficult, but you could answer a question if somebody asked you a question and they were beside you. So if somebody said, what did you have for breakfast? You could answer it. It would take a little bit of effort, but you could answer the question. And you're running a 5 kilometer at this pace. So I like to do it either on a treadmill or on the road, just for convenience sake, but you could also do this on a pitch. If you have a tracker on your phone, or if you're using anything that will track your steps, a Strava app, for example, you'll be able to do your 5 kilometer run on the pitch. You'll be doing laps of the pitch. So it's really personal preference at this point. The most important thing is that you're working to that 70% pace. So as you can notice with this program, you're getting a combination. That Mexican Mile works for a sprint, and it's going at a high intensity for a longer distance. The 20-meter sprint is a considerably shorter distance, but you're going to 100% max out capacity. The 5 kilometer run at a 70% pace is dropping the intensity right back, but going for a little bit longer distance. The reason I very rarely have any players go over 5 kilometers is you're not going to be covering at any point in a GAA game a 5 kilometer run at a steady pace. You're going to be sprinting, you're going to be stopping, you're going to be jogging, you're going to be running, you're going to be shuffling, you're going to be cutting, you're going to be doing lots of different movements. But what a 5 kilometer run at a 70% pace does, it keeps that aerobic fitness ticking over. This is something even in my off season, as somebody who loses my fitness quite quickly. I don't lose my strength. I can go months without lifting weights and not lose any strength, but I lose my fitness and my aerobic fitness very quickly. So I even keep a 6-kilometer run for me in, just because I came down from 20, 30, 40-kilometer runs off ultra endurance events. So for me, I do a 6-kilometer to 7-kilometer run once a week just to maintain it at that 70% pace, just to keep my aerobic fitness ticking over. As I said, I rarely recommend players go over 5 kilometers, but depending if you're coming from a similar point, you've been running 100-mile ultra marathons, etc. for the last few years, you could probably go a little bit higher with this, but the majority of GA players aren't coming at it from that background. So 5-kilometer run at a 70% pace is your third one. The next one then is a side-to-side shuffle with a sprint. So what I tried to do in the free 4-day running program here is just incorporate some form of shuffle, so side-to-side movement with a traditional sprint. And this kind of mimics, and is probably out of all four, the closest that will happen in a game. Because you will be cutting, you will be shuffling from side to side, and then you'll be sprinting flat out. So if you think of putting a cone or even a jumper in a starting position, and you go with a 5 to 10 shuffle to the left side, coming back to the middle, 5 to 10 shuffle on the right side, coming back to the middle, and then sprinting, that's going to be the closest thing you'll get to mimicking a game with a running program. And again, repeating this 10 times with a 20 or 50 meter sprint, depending on what you'd prefer to work on in terms of area. Obviously, your position would also play a role here. I tend to have inside forwards, inside backs doing more 20-meter work, just because it's important that you drill the pattern and the distance that you'll be covering most frequently in a game. But if you're playing in the half back line, half forward line, you're probably going to need to do this at a longer distance, 50 meters plus, just to mimic what you do in a game. But again, individual circumstances of the player is going to determine how you design this. So a side-to-side shuffle with the sprint. So as I mentioned, putting these all together, all four of these, covers most of your bases with a running program. You don't need any equipment. You don't need anything too fancy to do it. A pitch in an ideal scenario, which every GA player should have access to, hopefully, particularly even over the off season, over the Christmas, if you're listening to this at the time of recording. And you can go out and you can do these workouts either in conjunction with your gym-based program, or in addition to it, at another time of the day, or it's just your full program. If you don't want to do a gym-based program for whatever reason, you don't have a priority on strength, conditioning, etc., you just need to improve your running capacity, then this could work. And then the final thing here is a bonus speed work session. So I'm going to start, I think, putting up more of these style workouts with speed. And I think this is going to be a whole podcast in itself. Something that I mentioned on a recent Instagram Q&A was somebody asking about speed work and how long and how much does speed work actually improve how fast you are on the pitch. And if working and prioritizing this actually is worth doing. And my answer, which I'm going to give now, but as I said, will probably be its own podcast in the near future, is with speed work, there's a lot of misconceptions of players. And there's definitely a genetic component to speed. So some players are just going to be naturally faster. Some people are designed to move quicker. Somebody smaller and lighter compared to somebody who's carrying 2 stone extra than they need to is obviously, in most cases, going to be faster. And you also have some players who just have that inbuilt genetic speed. Even though they might be 2 stone overweight, they have a burst of speed over 20 meters. So there's a genetic component for sure. However, you can also directly work on this. So by prioritizing speed within your workouts, whether that's overspeed training, whether that is doing direct glute work, whether that's explosive plyometrics or a combination, there's a way to design a training and gym-based program to improve your speed on the pitch. The mistake players make is that there is an old philosophy with muscle building that if you don't use it, you lose it. And speed is exactly the same. So if you think of building muscle, this is a good example for this podcast. If you stop training for 2, 3, 4 weeks, muscle atrophies, meaning that it's quite metabolically taxing for your body to carry a lot of muscle, meaning that it doesn't really want to. It's not necessary after a certain point. And if you're not stressing your body, i.e. lifting weights, creating resistance, your body's just going to be like, you know what, we don't need this muscle. Let's just get rid of it. That's why people can lose muscle quite quickly. It's the you don't use it, you lose it philosophy. Speed is the same, but we don't talk about this as much. And I'm not sure why, but hopefully this will clarify it in terms of what happens here. With speed training, if you follow, let's say, a 6-week speed phase or a 6-week training program for speed, you can considerably improve your speed, particularly your takeoff speed, but also your max out speed and how long you run for. The problem is if you don't maintain it, you go back to baseline, meaning you regress to the mean. So whatever your normal genetic based speed is and fitness level for the most part, if you stop doing that training program after 6 weeks and you've done nothing to maintain it, you're going to go back to normal. So sometimes players will think, well, actually, I can't really improve speed that much, or they'll notice it for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks while following a program, and they'll think, geez, I'm getting really fast, or I'm quicker, and then they go back onto a new program, a new phase that doesn't have any maintenance speed work in there, and then they regress back to the mean, and they think, oh, actually, I didn't really improve my speed. So the way you design that, and this is something I try and work with my players, so I don't do direct speed sessions in my program. I try and incorporate speed elements within the program so that you're able to maintain it throughout the season. So you're building up and increasing that speed through the plyometrics, through the glute work, through keeping everything loose and flexible, the whole host of ways in which you can improve speed. But I try and maintain that. So when phase 1 rotates into phase 2 and the lateral movements come in and explosive off the lateral movements, or explosive movements in different variations, in different patterns, jumping onto a box, for example, explosive box jumps, things along those lines, and you're going from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 1 to phase 2 through the season, you're automatically maintaining that speed that you've built. So that's what you want to look at. And something in terms of how to design that session would be something as simple and straightforward as explosive movement. So let's say you go into the gym and you're doing a barbell box squat. Slow negative onto the box, killing the momentum, exploding up. Rocking squats, if you have no issues with knees and ankles, can be another movement that help with this. Single leg box jumps or double leg box jumps, tuck jumps or plyometrics and broad jumps over a bench. That can all work towards just getting those fast twitch muscle fibers kicking in. You can also use speed bands where you're doing high knee raises, or you're doing mimic sprints with speed bands. Your single leg work where you're learning to explode off one leg can all impact speed in a positive way. Your ice skaters from one side to the other with a focus on explosive movement through the non-loaded leg. All of these things can improve speed. So that's how you would design potentially a speed workout for yourself and a speed program for yourself. So mix that in with the running program here and you'll have the best of all worlds. Hopefully you'll get that combination of improving aerobic fitness, improving your running capacity, potentially speeding up. And then if you have any other secondary goals, you can potentially work on those as well. So as I mentioned, the free 4-day running program, I've linked that below here. This is something I get asked for very frequently. I have a running program built within my GAA Lean Body program, but the main priority for that is gym-based or clubhouse-based or home-based or the bodyweight S&C program. So the running programs are kind of a tie-on for that. So I've taken some elements, I've put them into this 3-day running program. So if this is all you need and you have your own gym program or your own club program or you're doing your own sessions, you're doing your own nutritional plan, etc., this might be like a nice little addition that can support you over the off season, during the preseason, and potentially at any time during the year. So that's everything from me. Keeping this one a little bit shorter than normal just because it's Christmas, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday. I'll put that link in the description below. I'll also link my GAA Lean Body program as normal. For more details on that and working with me, you can click through on there. That's everything from me from this week's podcast. Catch you all real soon.